Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part two of the interview with Gyto in what we will call a Necron Masterclass, available to our Patreons on an immediate basis, soon to be released for the wider audience. I'm Joker of Contact Lost, and with me today is Gyto, the Polish overlord. Hello again.
Hello, everyone.
Let's jump straight in. So, Gyto, what are the most prevalent Necron archetypes currently? Is it the either you play two warrior blobs or two Lich Guard blobs, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, obviously, uh, if you bring me here, I gonna tell it's much more to that than just those two list archetypes. But I would say those were two main ones on the event. I would also argue you can have two different approaches, like mainly two different approaches to building Necron list in 10th edition. One of them would be building a list that has really, really strong front line and it's gonna try to push your opponent off the board, but don't have like huge damage potential behind it, mostly like support pieces. Or you can have a list that is decent enough in the frontline department, but also has a lot of damage behind it to pick out and deal with your opponent's tools also. So I would say, like, depending on the archetype, like two main ideas of building lists, you either have because they are like three frontline units Necrons can field in this edition. Those are Lich Guards, Warriors, or Transcendent Satan with Feel No Pain. And if you want to build a list that's gonna be very like damage heavy and have tools to kill a lot of your opponent's stuff, so in like the idea is that if your opponent commits on your hard frontline, he need to commit a lot, so he exposes himself a lot, and you're gonna start killing him. And to build that list, you basically pick two units out of those three I mentioned as a frontline. The trick is that warriors works best if you have Ghost Arc with them, and they are also uh, straight up more expensive than Lich Guards in most builds.
Mhm.
So if you go the warrior path, you will have less points to have your shooting backline. And at the same time, the Lich Guards the warriors don't really deal damage at all. So they don't complement that backline shooting list that much, but at the same time, they are arguably more difficult to deal with than your usual Lich Guards if you put enough like supporting pieces behind warriors.
Mhm.
And the second archetype is having like 3 or 4 of the frontline units I mentioned. So you have such a heavy front line, you will just absorb your opponent's damage, and even though you are not dealing a lot of damage yourself, you're gonna die so slowly and gonna score so many points, or even uh, what I think Liam's Hackett list was doing. Push your opponent into situation when he cannot no longer focus enough damage in one place that you never gonna kill any of those frontline units that are gonna start to tag you and like take objectives from you. Yeah, so that I would say that are two like philosophies of buildings list, Necron list in this edition. You either have like two frontline units, uh, maybe three if you try to stretch it really hard.
Mhm.
You have like two Lich Guard units and a Citan, but at that point it's like a mid ground between those two ideas, and I don't think it's the necessary correct option. Or you have, as I said, a list that have a lot of frontline or a lot of stuff behind your smaller frontline. And that would be like two main archetypes, and below those archetypes you got the difference between, do you take warriors as your frontline, do you take Lich Guard as your frontline, do you maybe try to mix those? And I feel mixing those is it has some benefits, but it will not work in a list that will be the damage dealing type. So warriors are a little bit more expensive and need a little bit more support behind them. Like they are not as independent as Lich Guard are. So by picking like a mix of units, either you have really good warrior unit, one unit of really good warrior support, and a decent Lich Guard unit, and then you have your fire support, which I don't think works that well. I think warriors are very good in like 2 units. You have at least 2 or 3 units. 3 is a little bit over commitment, I think, on them. But if you have like 2 units of warriors, the buffs stack on them just right to be very obnoxious to deal with. And building the list that's gonna be the frontline one, you either have a choice of having much more bricks of stuff, so like 3 or 4, maybe even units of something, or do you get more citans mixed up with the big blobs of stuff. So there are like 2 ways you can go, and then those 2 ways like differentiate into more stuff what you can take. There is even argument, even though on WTC it wasn't taken, like you can play so weird shit like Soroptech heavy construct, which with the right circumstances and if you use a stratagem to reroll all the wound rolls, can be really really good.
Hmm.
Yeah, so those like are 2 ways to build your list.
Okay. I have to say you caught me a little bit off guard. I would have expected it to be between Warriors and Lich Guard, but you've obviously shared a lot more insight about it. So Dick has been asking us to take a closer look at Liam's list, and I'm sure you'd love to do that and tell us all about it. So why don't we go into that? But before we do that, into which archetype would you classify that list of haze, considering what you've just told us?
Okay, so it's actually very cool for discussion because my list was one of the like big archetypes I mentioned, and Liam's list is the other one, and both I think
Perfect.
perform really well. So we have both sides of the argument what you want to do with the Necron list.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Liam's list was all the frontline
I
without yeah.
Before you go into the detail, I've put it up on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
so you should be able to see it. We can go unit by unit, but yeah, give us the overview that you've got.
Yeah. So we're gonna go through all the units in a second, but like the
Mm-hmm.
whole idea behind it is it's a frontline heavy Necron slits that try to deny your opponent's points and score as much as they can, not necessarily killing your opponent. And at the same time, the list try to get to like a equilibrium when you are not dealing enough damage or you don't concentrate enough damage in one place that you will never kill anything in this list at all because you cannot efficiently focus yourself to try to deal with his front line. He gonna try to spread out the damage as much as he could, and like get to the point you cannot never finish a unit, so it's gonna resurrect as crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so going through the list, I think it's going from top to bottom is a little bit weird. I think we need to start with what's the main like core of the list, and the core of the list are 2 warriors bricks that we can see now. This
Mm-hmm.
is the thing that holds this list together, and it's a decision to have less damage output, yes, but have more buffs that can stack on top each other, and at the same time have really good primary control, because warriors are in big like they are 20 man units, not 10 man units as Lich Guard, and at the same time they have OC2 base, not OC1. And if we go a little bit back up the list, in the character category, we will have Catacomb Command Barge, which gives warriors even more OC, so they go to OC3, and at which point the 60 OC of the warriors brick can take like all the objectives on the map, on the table from you. Yeah, but that list only with 22 blobs of 20 warriors would probably not work that well if it was not supported by 2 Zetans. So Liam bring Zetan Shard of Nightbringer, which is like main damage dealer in this army. It's very slow piece that is decent at dealing damage, not amazing, but decent enough that on like through multiple combat phases he gonna deal enough damage to maybe kill something that is a trouble for you. But I don't think it's his role is to go first into your opponent. You basically first pin your opponent with warriors, and then you're gonna try to finish it off with the Nightbringer. And the second like big like there are basically 4 units in this army that play table, and that are 2 warrior bricks, Nightbringer, and Transcendent Zetan. And Transcendent Zetan that we can see with the enhancements that he gives him 4-up Feel No Pain, makes it so that there is so many armies in the game that just cannot kill this guy. Like after the FAQ changes, and that he get reanimation protocols and heals himself, and you can stack buffs of healing on top of him. He's just unkillable for so many armies. He also has ability to teleport around the table when he advances, and his weapon is Assault, so he's a very cool piece to do like tactical secondaries, maybe some fixed secondaries. But yeah, like mainly the fight for objectives and the units that will be constantly in contact with your opponents gonna be those 2 Necron Warriors bricks and 2 Zetans, which like every single unit here is very very hard to kill. Maybe Nightbringer with correct stat lines can be deal with reasonably enough, but the rest of them are just very hard to shift. And it's very interesting what he put inside his Necron Warriors bricks, because he kind of built. I didn't see a lot of his games, but looking from this, it makes perfect sense how he put his units into them, like how he built his Necron Warriors, how he fitted them with his characters. So one of the unit is a warrior brick with Orican the Divider and an Overlord, and that's the unit that will have. And the Overlord has an enhancement that gives them stealth and cover outside of 12 inches. Stealth is always, cover is only outside of 12 inches. So the hypermaterial ablator, and putting inside of warrior brick a Orica that gives them all of them four up invuln, and on top of that giving them overlord that has a resurrection up and gives them stealth, makes this unit extremely hard to kill. Second unit he builds is Royal Warden combined with Chronomancer. It makes the unit have also -1 to hit, but in this case in both shooting and melee. The unit doesn't have an invuln, but has a much more mobility because the Chronomancer has a Veil of Darkness, so the unit can teleport, and the Chronomancer special rules allows the unit to move after they shot. And the important stuff is that you are putting out, yes, that the unit with the Chronomancer will also have in the 20-man break of warriors a Gauss Flayer. Someone could say that Royal Warden has a weapon with a longer range or the same range, but the idea of this list is in most cases you don't expose your characters, so you cannot get focused by whole opponent army, at least in the first turns. Like at some point you can do it, it's fine. But in the first turns, I don't think you want to expose your characters. So if you take too much damage, during taking damage, you can just hide the unit, and the characters are safely behind the walls. So this unit has a Veil of Darkness, the move after they shoot, and Royal Warden also gives them assault weapons, so they always can like go out on the table, advance, shoot, move again. They are actually really, really quick with that combo. And also Veil of Darkness plus the Chronomancer rule allows them to do the same thing that gargoyles do. So you can Veil of Darkness outside of objective, shoot, move on the objective. You are OC3 because of the Catacomb Command Barge, and take the objective from your opponent. Also, it allows the unit to come back. Like if you take too much damage and you go back basically to your like home objective, your booth center, because it's very important. Also, like in a second, we're gonna talk about it, but this list has like a circle of buffs behind somewhere hidden, usually, that you make like lines of warriors towards. So if you take too much damage, you can Veil of Darkness into better position and so on. There is a lot of more buffs for warrior. Also, though, both units get Crypto Trolls that are really nice addition to the defensive stats of the unit, and basically every activation of your opponent, he's gonna kill Crypto Trolls, and there are like 2 ways per phase to resurrect, or depending on the phase, but usually it's gonna be 2 per phase to resurrect warriors and resurrect Crypto Trolls in those units. So to make like because like the warriors are very hard in this combination to get one-shotted, to lose all of the warriors and Crypto Trolls on top of that. And this list has a Ghost Arc that we're looking at and a Canoptic Reanimator, which make it so that okay, so every Necron unit reanimate D3 wounds. If you have warriors, they reanimate D6. If you're touching objective, they reanimate 3 plus D3. So still up to 6, but it's easier. And on top of that, you get another D3 every time you reanimate if you are in range of reanimator, right? You have a reaction. You have reaction stratagem when you take casualties after your opponent finishes his attacks. You start to reanimate, and if you have a leader in a unit, it's another +1, and you have a like reanimation during your opponent phase. And the Ghost Arc allows you, and like the stratagem can be used on one of the units, the unit with the Overlord. If you deal damage to the unit with Overlord second, you could theoretically say unit with Chronomancer and Royal Warden gonna use a stratagem, and then for free you're gonna use the stratagem, the same stratagem on a Overlord's unit. But this list also has a Ghost Arc that gives the same effect as the stratagem, so you can activate the animation another time. And the Ghost Arc is written horribly, I would say. The rule of the Ghost Arc is just, I think it's basically someone don't really think about the implications of the rule. It's so the reanimation on the warriors is the stratagem reanimation works only in your opponent shooting or melee, like fight phase, shooting phase, and fight phase. But Ghost Arc rule says once per phase, just after an enemy unit finishes making its attacks, if one of more friendly Necron warriors units within 3 of this model lost 1 or more wounds, blah blah blah, basically any phase, it doesn't matter if it's your phase, your opponent phase, is it in the Overwatch, is it like, I don't know, someone deals some damage to you in the charge phase with like tank shock. Anytime, any phase, you can use the Ghost Arc and it refreshes every phase. So you can force your opponent to kill like one warrior in his fight phase, or you lose like one warrior to I don't know, mine exploding, and you can trigger the Ghost Arc reanimation, which is nuts. And
yeah,
like, just to make clear, this unit of warriors, if you use a stratagem, if and you have all the buffs, gonna reanimate 4 plus 2d3 models, basically like wounds, but you know, cryptodollars are 2 wounds, but it's gonna be 4 plus 2d3 wounds every time. I mean, the time you're gonna do damage to it. And then he gonna reanimate with his Ghost Arc 3 plus 2d3 warriors if you do it again. And he can squeeze in some more reanimation in the fight phase, or if you fire Overwatch, or he tags you and you kill one warrior, he's gonna reanimate even more. Like, it reanimates like crazy. And it's still not all the reanimation. There's more reanimation in this list, because the Overlord has a Resurrection Orb, so you're gonna reanimate in your opponent's command phase. And the Command Barge has a Resurrection Orb, which is kind of like a separate rule. So you can resurrect twice in your opponent command phase. To make it short, it's basically if you don't kill Warrior Blob in one go, or you don't do like you almost kill the whole unit and the next activation in the same phase, don't kill it to the last guy, you don't deal 0 damage. You basically don't kill anyone. Like, the unit's gonna be full.
They're all coming back, yeah.
Yeah. So
Bonkers.
what this, and there are still some defensive buffs and a little bit of offensive buff in this list, in form of Illuminor Sharas, because Illuminor Sharas gives warriors, or basically battle lines of warriors and immortals, but in this list, warriors, Armor of Contempt. So you make your opponent's AP worse by 1, and it gives better AP of warriors both in shooting and in melee, so they can kinda like kill some chaff, maybe. Usually not, but maybe. And Illuminor Sharas is still one of the hardest to kill pieces in the whole game, because if he's have someone within 3 inches, he gets a lone operative, so you cannot easily snipe him. Also, he has like 2-up save, 4-up invuln, 4-up feel no pain, like toughness 8 or some bullshit 9 wounds, and he can resurrect after he dies once per game from the stratagem because he's still infantry for some reason on like a 80 or 100 millimeter base, like huge base. Actually, I think it's a bigger base than a little knight's base, and he is still considered infantry.
No.
No, maybe the same size, but basically huge base.
Mm-hmm.
And he can resurrect with the stratagem. It makes this list so insanely durable. If you don't have tool to kill warriors in one go, you're gonna struggle. Obviously, if you deal a lot of damage multiple times to them, they will be forced to like get off the objectives because you will be dealing so much damage that more and more activation at some point would run the risk of actually killing the warriors in the one phase you are doing it. So there is an argument that sometimes you need to like clear the warriors and move your because you string them out through hold board, you make like a lines of warriors, and you start taking too much damage, you can like take them off. And at some point, if you like manage to tag your opponent in specific way that he cannot focus any longer on one of the warriors unit, you're not gonna kill warriors to the end of the game, and he's just gonna score insane points against you. And I think that's what's happening in most of games. It's a very nice list, but I would say it has some weaknesses. If your opponent has tools to one-shot warrior brick with crypto trolls, like reliably one-shot it, and there are lists, especially Team Poland had a lot of those, you're gonna struggle. Also, some of the lists that also have like a good OC play and are very difficult to kill, like castodes, but very specific castodes. You actually need to have a lot of guardians, a lot of big blobs of like castodes can try to kill it, or you get lucky on your Wraith Knight rolls, because I think there is like 25% chance if you use all the buffs you can get on the Wraith Knight to one shot this unit. And if you have like two Wraith Knights, the first Wraith Knight, if he rolls decent enough, can deal so much damage that if he's already committed somewhere deep on the table, the next activation will have like 4 or 5 warriors less to kill because he will not reanimate all of them. It usually will not happen, but you know, there is like maybe possibility. And like coming back to the castodes idea, if you start to dealing too much damage to this list, it's kinda need to move back because it cannot like lose a warrior brick because it just like it's one of the 4 pieces that this list has, and the rest of it is support. He needs to like go back, and if you make a huge ball of castodes and just push it on through the middle of the board, like huge ball of castodes towards his like tech pieces and his characters, at some point there is a possibility you're just gonna catch his characters with like 2 bricks, or you will start killing his support pieces and will just lose. This list will just start to die and crumble. Also, I think the guards list is not having a good matchup into it, but if it goes first, can maybe deal with it, especially Skark's list, because the Skark had enough of no loss to try to kill the support stuff of this list, and at the same time enough bullshit on the board that he could just slow it for a turn or two. So there are ways to deal with it, but if you make one mistake in your deployment, if you make one mistake during your game, you basically fucked. So going back to castodes idea, castodes in theory like Trajan Valoris with 10 guards if they charge and get to control objective, because you maybe charge 2 units of Custodes. That's why you need a big ball. You're gonna have a chance to one-shot the Warriors unit, especially one without Invuln. There's like a chance, but it's not a good matchup. It's a matchup that can be flipped with the right plays towards Custodes, but the Custodes need to exactly know what he's doing. He needs to combine his army with a huge wrecking ball and crush these bricks and the front line. Other way to do it would have to be having good enough tools that can play against it, as like our Tau list had, because our Tau list just looks wrong on the Necron breaks, the Necron warriors brick, and it just disappears. The 7-man unit of Crises just kills the Necron warrior brick and their family and their ancestors with them. Like, just it's actually a huge overkill, even though those brick is extremely difficult to kill. There is a really good chance. I think it's almost like it's still like a pretty big overkill with the aggressors that Lesius or Dark Angels list in Poland have. Like, if they get offs of moment on this unit and just fish for 5s with the Devastator Doctrine or the stratagem to give it Devastator Doctrine, it just deletes one of the warrior's bricks and the game like crumbles from the side. And at the same time, the Deathwing Knights are decent enough to like holding the Satans and the warriors back away from aggressors. So like, there is really usability maybe. It really depends on the play, but if you make one mistake during those games, so for example, you don't fire and fade your crises in the correct place, so there is no chance you're gonna get tagged by the warriors, or you don't how it's called, you don't put like oaths of moment in the correct position when you have your aggressors in the right doctrine, or you like missed position something that you're gonna lose 1 or 2 aggressors before you do damage, it just rolls over you. Like, you need to really know what you are doing to play against this list, and I think like it shows what kind of player Hackett is. I think his lists, like, he make a lot of innovations in the meta, like the Custodes bricks, like this list, for example, and those lists are really good. But they are good because they are like fit in perfectly in the correct meta, and they are kind of a trick. Like, they prey very heavily on your opponent, not knowing exactly what to do, and they kinda assume your opponent will not have the right tools to deal with them, and it's like perfectly fine, the philosophy of building that list. But I think this kind of list, especially this one, have a very polarized, like very different matchups. Like, you either have a matchup that don't have tools that you should just straight up win. Like, if you don't have tools to deal with warriors in that combination, you cannot never kill all of them. You straight up lose it just on the like building list level. Or there is a second layer. If you don't, you maybe have the tools, but you don't have the perfect tools that you just look at them and take them off the table. But you need to like play a very precise game, and you knew exactly what to do. It's such a unique list. You gonna lose it, and it's like shows a very specific way that Liam builds his list. At the same time, I feel like it's kinda like a one-trick list. Like, if the meta understands that this list gonna be in it, and more list gets good tools against it, more people understand how you're supposed to play against it, you start to lose your scores really, really rapidly. Like if someone, like for example, Chris from Team Netherlands play against this list with his Custodes, and he's a really good player. I played him on the like local teams event we had for the preparation before WTC, and he completely smashed my Necrons. He knew exactly what he's doing into like standard Necron list, and I would say his list got really like they didn't have the perfect tools, but have good enough tools to deal with this list. But you need to then play test this list, play against someone that understands this tricky list, because it's not easy to play this list, or at least it's not that you're gonna get all the intricate plays you need to do with it beforehand. Like you need to actually see it played out by someone that understands how it works in detail, because like there is small things like there are like couple ways the game can turn out, but one of them is like in front of the warrior bricks there gonna be a Cetan, transcended Cetan, or the Nightbringer, doesn't matter. If for any reason you're gonna go and try to kill the warrior's brick and some of your attacks gonna go into the Satan, your like chances of killing warrior bricks go really, really bad. And also like you start splitting damage, and at some point he surrounds you and forces different models from your different units to like activate against different targets, so you cannot focus your damage on one blob, and at this point the game is lost. Like you make one small mistake and you're fucked. And I think like Liam Hackett's list like are very often like a trick list that is very niche, very unique, and works a lot because the meta is not prepared, or your opponent doesn't know exactly what he need to do. And I think it
That's what
exemplifies.
innovation is about, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, like you can build a new list that, for example, like I think is a little of a tricky player. Like he makes tricks. If someone knows how it works, it works. If someone don't know how, like if someone knows how it works, it just dies. You don't have like good ways to win that game if someone have tools or know how to play against it. And when I build my list, I try to make like a list that doesn't win as high and doesn't really rely on my opponent not knowing how it's gonna work out. Just so his list go for big wins or can fight for a draw if your opponent has decent enough tools or kinda know what you need to do against him. And my list, no matter what your opponent gonna bring, no matter what he gonna like know about my list, there is still space for me to play. Like his list is very good or very bad. My list is like very plain that he's decent enough into almost everything, and I don't have like I either have a good matchup or a bad matchup, or my opponent doesn't know what I'm gonna do, or he knows what I'm gonna do. I have like a more my opponent kind of knows how it's gonna play out. I kind of know how it's gonna play out, but I have the right tools in the right like distribution, that I have enough tools to deal with different stuff. And in general, it comes down more to like the good positioning, good game plan, good like basics of the game, not to a trick of the list. Like it's don't like I don't want to take anything from Liam. Liam is a great player, and like this list still needs a lot of skill. But I think it prays more or your opponent not knowing what he should do than maybe necessarily the player playing it. Like
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
I know what you're getting at. Right. Well, that was a very deep dive. So let's put it to contrast against your list. How about we do that?
Yeah.
Also, I noticed Liam's list didn't have any hex marks.
Yeah, like his list maybe would benefit with like one hex mark or something, but he just don't have points to put anything else. Like he basically has his two Catans that are completely necessary for that list to play, and he needs his two warrior
Mm-hmm.
bricks. And at the point when you add your support stuff, you will just not have any spare points for a hex mark. Like the only maybe situation you can try to, okay, so that will be a good point to what I was talking before. uh his list don't have hex mark because he don't have a backup plan if his opponent knows what he need to do. Like he
Mm-hmm.
is pushing harder into idea that his opponent will not have good enough tool or will not exactly know what to do against his list by having Illuminor Shares. He boosts the defensive stat line of warriors a little bit more. His play is like he's hard to deal with on the table, but he's very expensive for what he does. He
Mm-hmm.
cost basically 20 points less than a warrior brick without any characters attached. It's very expensive, but if your opponent don't have right tools or doesn't exactly know what Liam's gonna do with the list or how to play against it, it's a right choice. Like it pushes the strengths of the list higher, but
Mm-hmm.
not having hex marks or like some MSU units just don't give you an out of the game if your opponent is gonna figure out what you're trying to do or have tools against you.
Mm-hmm.
Like it polarizes the matchups much harder for him to not have hex marks. Yeah, basically that.
Okay. So now then, what about your list? Which archetype does it fall into, and where do I start looking when you're going to tell us about it?
Okay, so the archetype of the list is what I said is more of a damage dealing list of Necrons. I don't have as many points invested in my front line
Mm-hmm.
because on the bottom of the list we see two Lich Guard units, and
Yep.
that's basically those two Lich Guard units supported by the characters and Reanimator are the whole of my front line, and it's like 500 points less or even more considering like it's if you consider the support of Liam's list, he has like 3 times more points. Like I have like roughly, let's say, 800 points in that front line, like
Yeah.
roughly, or 800 points in that front line, and his list
Mm-hmm.
is the front line. There is only the front line and the supporting stuff
Mm-hmm.
to make the front line run. In this
Yep.
list, I have my two Lichguard blobs with Overlords with Resurrection Orbs to make them more resilient in the long run. I have two Technomancers to give them feel no pain. I have Hypermetal like stealth on one of the unit. Usually the second unit gets the Veil of Darkness. And then I have a lot of shooty stuff. So we go down. We have my Doomsday arcs, two Doomsday arcs. Then below that we have Locust Heavy Destroyers that are like base of like my fire base behind my front line. So the list idea is to kinda force your opponent to deal with Lich Guards, which are not great at dealing damage, but against some lists, if left unopposed, they will do
Mm-hmm.
damage, especially over time. And when your opponents start to deal with Lich Guards, you're gonna use your backline shooting to just do nasty stuff to him. Or there is other game that can happen, and it happened to me on the WTC like twice, is your opponent's gonna ignore your Lich Guards, gonna try to kill all of your backline shooting and all of your backline support, but at the time he does it, Lich Guard's gonna kill something. You obviously don't lose like your backline without dealing any damage with the backline, shooting like fire base. So you kill some stuff from his army. He kills your support shooting. Then the Lich Guard have like a free reign on the objectives because he don't have enough tools to deal with Lich Guards after he spent like 3 turns trying to fight your backline shooting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, Lich Guards are doing stuff on the table. This list also has like a lot of MSU mixed into it. Like you have 2 solo Locust Destroyers in it, with are like they are the smallest Necron unit you can take, and they also have OC, and they are decently fast enough, and they are tough enough that maybe like 1 or 2 bolters will not kill them, so they can survive something. You have some Acantrites, which are the fastest Necron unit currently. They are basically, if you Flayed Ones and Tomb Blades would have a baby, they are the unit. They have infiltration as the yeah, I know. So
That's something only you could have said.
yeah, they have the infiltration as the Flayed Ones do, and Flayed Ones got 70 points. They cost 85, so 50 more points for infiltration, but they move as much as Tomb Blades, so they move 12 inches instead of Flayed Ones that move only 5. And on top of that, they are beasts, so they go through the walls, and Tomb Blades and most of other fast Necrons units need to go around the walls. So
Yep.
they are like literally the fastest Necron unit you can get reliably. Like planes go faster, but it doesn't really like count for objectives and shit. So they are the fastest unit Necrons can get. They are very nice for what they cost. They are maybe not necessarily needed in every list, but they are like just really nice package of utility for what they cost. They also can deal in some circumstances a little bit of damage because they have like 3 melta shots, 9 attacks in between them with AP2, so they can like kill something small. And they also give like a it's kind of irrelevant, but it's something you get extra. If you hit a shot with the Melta, the unit you're gonna shoot, every time you're gonna score a critical wound roll, you're gonna increase the AP. So if you roll a 6 to wound, in most cases, you're gonna get better AP by 1. It's like, for them, if they don't have any weapons and they have infiltration and the movement they have, they will be fine. But on top of that, they have some decent damage and they have the little buff they get. As mentioned before, I have tried to make as much chaff in this list as I could. So I have my 5-man Deathmarks unit, which are the cheapest, I think actually the cheapest deep strike unit Necrons have. Or at least the most like the best cheap deep strike unit Necrons have. For 65 points, they are decent enough in defense that they don't die to like someone looking at them wrong. Like other chaff don't kill them that easily. They also have precision with shots that are 5 strength 5 -2 damage 2, so you might snipe like I don't know, a character from Space Marines or some Eldar character maybe, or Thousand Sons character maybe. Like they have some shots and they like it's okay. They have also quite okay footprint for how much they cost, because this is 5 model unit that you can string out quite a bit to like block deep strikes and stuff. But they are just like decent chaff unit to go around the table, deep strike, put on objectives, rapid ingress maybe on objective if you need to. Like they are just fine. And on top of that, in the top of the list, we have like 2 Hexmark destroyers that are basically doing the Deathmark's role, but better, because they have lone up and they have like tricks with Overwatch and additional shooting if someone gets shot within 3 inches of them, or they get shot and they survive. So you have like some small shots into the list. You got actually a lot of anti-tank, because 2 Doomsdays and 6 heavy Locust destroyers with the big anti-tank guns can easily like deal with knights, can easily deal with Freight Knight. Even like if you go on a, as I previously mentioned in part 1, if you get your opponent will have like a table with little to none big ruins, or God forgives you for some reason gonna play like GW terrain and towering is everywhere. Like it's actually bad for towering to play against this list, because it's gonna win the Mexican standoff of shooting against it. So yeah, and like Doomsdays also, if especially if they don't move or you rapid ingress them, your opponent can deal with like horde-ish lists. So for example, a nice trick you can do against Ginstealer cults is you can rapid ingress the Doomsday near neophytes, and like 1 brick of neophytes shouldn't be able usually to deal with Doomsday alone. And it like mixes up your opponent's plans, because he was like trying to kill something else usually, and then he has a Doomsday in his face. And because you rapid ingress it, you usually would like to put him within like more than 11 inches, so your opponent has a long charge if you try to target. And if he survives your opponent turn, you will have a Doomsday that was stationary, your movement phase, so have devastating wounds. If you shoot some like a Doomsday being disclosed to your opponent with the reroll wound roll, you have 20 little shots that are really good profile to killing neophytes. On top of that, you got d6 plus 5 shots that you get hitting on 2s into neophytes, and then you fish for 6s, and every 6 is 4 mortal wounds. So it very quickly becomes that this Doomsday, that rapid ingress turn before, just clears a 20-man units of neophytes, usually with the characters too, because you got like 20 really efficient shots into them. On top of that, you get like 8 or 12 mortal wounds. If you get lucky, obviously you get 12, because you reroll all the wound rolls. So it's actually quite good if you play it right into like chaff or like horde-ish armies. Yeah. And this list, like in general, the idea is to expose your Lich Guard enough that your opponent need to deal with it. And if he doesn't deal with it, you're gonna do nasty things to him. And if he like deal with it, you're gonna have a lot of shooting into him, and he will not deal with your fire base. If he deals with your fire base, you're gonna push your Lich Guard down his throat and just score a lot of points out of him with Lich Guard. Yeah, and this is like the second archetype I was describing. So like decent frontline, but still a lot of shooting behind it. Yeah. So before there was a question, what would I change in this list? If I would play WTC, I would try to somehow fit another hex mark into the list. If I
Mm-hmm.
would play maybe singles, I would play 3 Doomsdays, 1 Lich Guard blob, and the Setan because it's actually cheaper than a Lich Guard blob. So I would like try to build a list with that. Okay, so I think we have those two archetypes and what's my list and what's Liam's list sorted out. And I think like my list would be described more in detail when we go to the pairings and so on. So
Yep, exactly, and we might as well just do that. So let's go through your games. First game was against South Africa Orcs, which we kind of mentioned in part one already. But please tell me, what was your estimation going into that game, and how did the game pan out?
okay, so before WDC, I don't really play a lot of games into orcs, especially into builds that I end up playing under WDC. And
Mm-hmm.
my estimation was I gonna slightly win from what I remember, like little win for me matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I don't really prepare for this game enough, I would say. And I give my opponents and like dices too much space to do stuff. And in the end, got didn't eat enough bananas to pull it off. Like if I didn't make any mistakes, it would be fine. But I make mistakes, and the rolls didn't save me from my mistakes, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So going into this matchup, I was kinda respecting my opponent's damage output, and because of that, I allowed my opponent to basically use his Wa turn 3 because I was not pushing hard enough into him.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out, even if the whole list almost, like except maybe the Squeakle boys, because they were a little bit out of position and I could have like move block them with Acantrites and like heavy destroyers on one flank. I could have like move block them to not charge my Lich Guard when rest of his army charge my Lich Guard. I could
Mm-hmm.
just run at him, but I didn't. So because if I run at him, he would probably need to use his Water too, which means he's gonna go into me, deal some damage, and I have still plenty of time to kill him and then go score objectives.
Mm-hmm.
But because I didn't go that way and I go uh, a little bit slower and don't allow him to have easy charges with like almost all of his list, the game play a little bit slower, and in the crucial moment when I started to score high on primary, because this mission was escalating primary basically, because the objectives start to disappear and the objectives that are left on the board give more points.
Mm-hmm.
So concentrating your army on one or two objective gives you a lot of points, and it's easier to hold two objectives than hold three objectives, so you can get better primary points and difference in primary points later turns. And in the crucial turns, he pushed me off the primary. Also, is very important to mention that I get kind of fucked on the mission rolls, because this mission had a rule that after you deploy, you select which objective gonna disappear, and we
Mm-hmm.
basically like we deployed. I deployed like knowing that one of my sides will be a little bit weak, because it's just the way I cannot split the units equally. So I have like stronger middle. Let's say left flank was a little bit stronger than the right flank, and what like end up happening, the left flank marker was disappearing first, then the
Mm-hmm.
middle was disappearing, then his side marker was staying to the end of the game and will be the most points for primary for him and for me, obviously. And I was going towards the last objective, but during turn 3 he committed, so I get a little bit stop for turn 3. Turn 4 I clear all this, basically all of the stuff that committed into me, and move again towards the last objective. At turn 5 I got like storm hostile objective and overwhelming force, and there was like only one objective on the board that could give me those points, the last objective, and it was, I was going second, and it was on top of that 15 primary points. And then because I was not, I basically clear everything that he put into my army. Or actually, no, I have overwhelming force and assassination. But yeah, basically, like there was still like 4 big game points to get if I get the objective.
Yep.
And basically, because he committed to me and I got slowed down, that my push onto this objective, what was not with whole my army, but like half of my army. And then on his battle wagon, he got like, because my Doomsday was hitting on twos, I make reroll amount of shots with CP. I give him reroll wounds with CP, and I basically shoot everything, charge my Lich Guard, reroll the charge to get more of them on the objective, finishing the same distance because I rolled 7, reroll to a 7. Because if I roll 8, I would just get the objective with more OC. I would not need to kill anything, and it end up so that I think his battle wagon have 5 saves from Doomsday on 5 ups because he had cover. The battle wagon have armor of contempt, and I have AP -4, so it's AP -2 against him. So he saves on 5s, and he pass, I think 5 out of 5 up saves with 4 damage, and I still like shot everything, charge everything I could, still fight him, and I think he survived on 1 or 2 wounds. Yeah, so there was so many outs from this game. Yeah, but to be fair, that lost was mainly because I played badly. Like it wouldn't happen if I push harder towards the side faster. Because like in this game, my Doomsdays do miracles against his boys because they staying stationary and having the one of them full rerolls to wound deal so many mortal wounds. Then Lich Guard are actually quite good profile to deal with boys. So in the end, I kill almost all of my opponent's army, not losing like, I didn't lose any Lich Guard blobs. I think I lose like 1 Doomsday and some destroyers. Maybe Acantrites. Like I don't lose much, and he lose most of his army, but he do it in such a way that I couldn't score enough points against him, and the game ended up with 6 points for my for me and 14 points for my opponent. So the South Africa Orcs get the best score from me throughout the whole event. And I think it was very nice to see that you need to approach every game with the highest like focus and be prepared for it perfectly and know everything. But in such a short time we had to prepare for WTC, there was just no way to play every matchup, and orcs in our eyes were not really looking that hot. Like we see they can the top teams list with a lot of tracks and a lot of little MSU orcs could do well into like GSC, maybe could do well in some other armies, but they definitely don't do well into Lich Guards because they just kill them, and my anti-tank kill tracks like instantly almost. So I was not worried about orcs, but those different lists of orcs that I faced in the pod stage and then later against Spain, also I get an orc game. I didn't really prepare that much before the event, so they catch me a little bit by surprise, especially this game. But as I mentioned, I played badly. Then the RNG in this mission didn't help, so I get punished for my bad plays. To sum it up, I fucked up. The dice didn't help to
To mitigate that.
to mitigate that mistakes I made, and my opponent get a really good score. And to be fair, he played it very well. Like I don't know if he did it on like I'm not sure if he do it on purpose, but he deployed like heavily on one of the board sides, like he were trying to gamble, because all of his quick hook boys that are like the only thing that can maybe try to kill my lich guards were on the one side of the board. So he
Was it the
deployed on the
side that he got the objective
yeah. Like
and the
it
one that
looked like
stayed at the end?
It looked like a gamble, and he won that gamble. Then I played badly. Then it worked out great for him. And during the game, he made all the right decisions, I would say. Like he committed in the perfect moment to slow me down, like not too fast, so I can like deal with him and then go score, and not too late, so I would already score and be in the position when he commits. He do it like as he should, and it pans out really well for him, I would say.
All right. So a few small mistakes, good gamble from your opponent, and your estimation seemed to be a little bit, or the result didn't match the estimation.
Yeah.
What about round two? Round two was Wales, and you played Orcs again. Do I remember
No.
that correctly?
I
No.
play Eldar with the Great Knight.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Excellent stuff.
So that game, I think in pod stage, I feel we kinda don't want to spoil our pairing strategy. So I was not our defender, or for any reason our pairings didn't necessarily need me to be a defender. So I end up playing Eldar on their table, and the table of choice was very dense. So in the end, I couldn't do my Mexican standoff trick that good against him, but it was like still good enough that his Great Knight basically, I think, never left his deployment zone, because if he did, he would just get demolished by my shooting. And because the table was pretty dense, I kept like playing very defensive game and scoring points. Also, the mission was the ritual, so you create your own objectives. So I'd make sure I can create as many objectives as I can, and I can just get it to a draw. In the end, the game finished up like a small win for me, 11-9. The game basically looked like this: we drew some secondaries. He done some secondaries. I use some of my chaff to do secondaries. Wraith Knight kill my chaff. My anti-Wraith Knight units like keep Wraith Knight in check, so he cannot leave his deployment zone. And we both just like play very passive game with scoring points. Still, there are some hindsights of the game, like at what point it was, I think, like turn 2. No, it was like turn 3 probably, or maybe turn 2. Doesn't matter. Like at some point I'll see that I can still keep the score very close, even if I push with one of the Lichguard units, and actually maybe put it in the position that I can lose it, because he would be able to focus his stuff onto it. So he could shoot his Wraith Knight without getting shot back by my shooting setup. He would not get shot with the other stuff that would go and try to deal with my Lich Guards. But still, this Lich Guard push get some primary points from my
Mm-hmm.
opponent, give also me some secondary points. So basically, there was like one moment when I pushed out into him, make a decent enough push. I make the charge, I kill some stuff, score some objective points, deny some primary, and then like the Lichguard blob was still in good enough place. It was the stealth Lichguard blob, so the harder to kill one. And then my opponent shoot his Wraith Knight and deal like 25 mortal wounds into my Lichguard blob, which is a little bit on the like higher side.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a little bit more than he should, but it's fine. I have my feel no pains. I survive it, and then rest of his army charge me, attack me, and so on. And I lost this unit almost completely. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think I lost the unit actually. I only have my characters left. And in the next turn, when I try to do the same trick again, basically, I get shot again by his Wraith Knight in
Mm-hmm.
Overwatch. And in Overwatch, I took 15 mortal wounds, which means I needed to move backwards because he shot me before I moved, not after I moved. Because after I moved, I could have like hidden from him.
Mm-hmm.
So he shot before I move, deal 50 mortal wounds. So when I was doing the movement, I needed to push my Lich Guard back, not in front, because only Ghost Arc allows warriors to reanimate in Overwatch, so in movement. So
Mm-hmm.
Lich Guards cannot reanimate with their stratagem or any other rule in your opponent. How it's called in your opponent in your
Overwatch.
movement, actually, yeah,
Yeah,
in
and
the
your
Overwatch,
movement.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he deal so much damage that my reanimation at the start of his command phase would not help me enough, and there was a like risk for me losing this blob, so I just push it back. And him and because this basically works like this, I move my unit, he shoot his Overwatch,
Mm-hmm.
then I push my stuff to threaten the Wraith Knight. Wraith Knight needed to phantas back, so I still managed to keep like Wraith Knight in his deployment zone. I just needed to push back the Lich Guard, not push them in front and try to like deny my opponent's points again.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, really nothing like amazing happened this game. At some point, my opponent tried to go for some more points, and he done it because he shoot something with Night Spinner and kill it, or I don't remember exactly. But basically, he teleported his Incarn, got into my shooting stuff, and then Incarn survived on like 2 wounds, but it was like turn 5 or something. It doesn't really matter. Like basically, the whole game was me scoring points, him scoring points, me asking the coaches if I need to push. They said I don't need to push, and basically, what allowed me to try and get a draw-ish result against those Eldar list was uh, the shooting backline that could kill his Wraith Knight, and if the Wraith Knight dies, I can start like blindly pushing into him because
Mm-hmm.
he didn't have anything else to really threaten Lich Guard. So there's that. Like, there was a checkmate on him, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't push, but at the same time, I couldn't push because if I push, he could shoot me my stuff and do the trick with a lot of mortal wounds again, maybe, and then I'm in trouble if he managed to do it. So because of that push that I make with Lichguard, I get like 11-9 win against
Mm-hmm.
those Eldars. Also, my opponent, I think he make a really good decision not to try to push the score. because his list was built in such a way that basically if Wraith Knight dies, Lich will never die. Like there
Mm-hmm.
was nothing that could really threaten them at all. And if he loses Wraith Knight, especially like in the opening turns, I would just roll over him. But he
Mm-hmm.
played well and not like try to push the score with his Eldor that game.
And what was your estimation going into that match?
On this mission, I think I got either small loss or a draw. I'm not sure, but like it was a draw-ish. Probably Necrons, the Eldar can win it slightly, simply because they are a little bit more mobile, so maybe they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
score the secondary a little bit better. Also, there was a fun moment in this game when my opponent tried to very creatively uh, take objective from me. So he figured out that I have on my home objective not enough OC, that if he puts like whole of his Shadow Specters unit on it, he will take it from me. So he moved his unit,
Mm-hmm.
shot with it, and have CP to fire and fade them again, like make another move with them, and
Yep.
by doing so get on my objective. But death marks got really nice use in that game, because his additional moves were done in the shooting phase, and me seeing what he's trying to do, I just make a decision that I'm gonna rapid ingress five more death marks on the objective, so he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't push me off the objective because his movement will go into shooting phase. I done it in the movement phase, so I just get more OC on the objective, and he couldn't go like take it from me. So there was like a very cool play he was trying to make. Then I make some counter play because I actually like it was turn 3 and I have an option of dropping the death marks then. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was a cool game.
So essentially, you anticipated what he was going to do
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and countered
Because
it.
because he, for like not good reason, was not using Overwatch that turn,
Mm-hmm.
and I was or no Overwatch, no, I don't know what. I like he didn't use something. I don't know. Oh yeah, I remember. He shoot uh, his incarn into one of my characters that were potentially doing some secondary play next turn, and he intentionally didn't reroll amount of shots because he
Mm-hmm.
rolled 1 on d6, and I was like looking at it, and okay, he tried to keep his CP because normally he would reroll it and just try to kill my character.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking, okay, so he moved his Shadow Specters in the middle of the board, then he didn't reroll the amount of shots. So he
Mm-hmm.
probably want to
Was
fire and fade or something. And I was like looking at the ranges. He also like at one point measured towards my
mm-hmm.
objective. So I was like looking at it, okay, probably he tried to take it from me. I look how many OC I have. I look how many OC he can get on the objective. And I was like, okay, I actually said to my opponent that I can rapid ingress and to hold this objective,
Mm-hmm.
and he was said, okay, but you need to do it. And I just spend the CP, drop the guys there, and anticipated his play basically.
Nice, nice one. And game number 3 in the pod was against Finland. So the
Mm-hmm.
usual. What did you get paired into? What was the estimation? How did the game go?
Okay, so my estimation, I get paired into GSC, the version with 10 aberrations and
Mm-hmm.
biophagos. My estimation to this matchup is a draw, but all the cards are basically in my opponent's hand, and I estimated it like a small, like draw, but there is a bigger chance for my opponent to get a small win, like 1 or 2 points above the draw. And at the same time, I mentioned that if my opponents place a gamble and the rolls goes his way, like it need to go actually quite a bit above average like expected results for my opponent to actually crack my front line
Mm-hmm.
if you position yourself correctly, but he can try to do it, and if he manages it, he could won like 13 maybe 14 points. So going into this, I knew I was gonna try to go for a draw. I picked the best combination of secondaries, so I picked fixed secondaries, assassination plus homers. We also were playing the mission when you have like very long uh, deployments, almost down of war deployments almost,
Mm-hmm.
and there is like a little corner near
Mm-hmm.
one of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sites
Uh,
that if you get someone there and you start doing homers, you're gonna get 4 points every turn, not 3 points
mm-hmm.
from the middle. And it was the perfect mission to play it. It was also kill more and control more, which is maybe slightly good into Necrons. Like it's maybe slightly good for Necrons. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily, because I actually in my list have a lot of chaff that he can try to snipe out with like 3-inch deep strikes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in the end, the game looked basically like uh, the GSC matchup into Necrons, if you pick Assassination and Teleport Homers with my list, goes one of two ways. Either your opponent don't use efficiently, like it will not use efficient his characters because he's scared of losing them,
Mm-hmm.
and I will score little on Assassination, but he will be lacking heavily. Like there will be a huge hole in his damage output, in his toolkit, because he's trying not to lose his characters.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, uh, it makes the gamble more expensive if he tries to like send it and try to kill my lich guards go through my army. It's make it more expensive if he fails, if I play those secondaries. And in the end, my opponent managed to lose 0 characters, completely 0. I score 0 from assassination. I score my 20 points from homers, because like turn 1 I Veil of Darkness into that little corner,
Mm-hmm.
because he couldn't, like, he could deploy there something, but if he does, I would have Doomsday's stationary shooting in that little corner because of the like table layout. So basically, he needed to like leave it open. Uh, yeah, and the game was like, he played very well to deny me assassination, but that meant I can push more freely on the board with my Lich Guards. And on one point, I could I could have sent it to go for a bigger win, but
Mm-hmm.
again, my so there's like a theme, like that the thing in this whole event, that I could have risk stuff, but my team was doing so well that I didn't need to in the
Mm-hmm.
end.
Yep.
So yeah, I played the safer version, and like on one hand, my opponent was doing really good job protecting his characters, uh, but I think there was like one quite crucial mistake on the side of my opponent. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he I draw like I rapid ingress hex mark on the objective in such a way he couldn't really shoot at him with anything, from what I remember, and he could charge him with aberrations. But if he charged him, he would expose his biophagus, he would expose aberrations to my shooting,
Mm-hmm.
and I could have multiple activations in the aberrations doing so. So he done that thing he was. I think like it was a reasonable thing to do. Is he didn't charge all the blob of aberrations into me. He like string out 4 aberrations into my hex mark, and because only like 3 of them could fight him, he used his ability to wound me on 2 ups, which in hindsight could have been a little bit too big of a commitment, but in the end it doesn't matter. Like if they have it for the Lich Guards or not, in that particular situations it didn't matter, because him stringing out like this with his aberrations meant that, and he killed the Hexmark, but next turn my Lich Guard tag his aberrations, but I done it in such a way that I was like fighting 10 Lich Guards, like 14 models basically, roughly 14 models, because some of them like characters were behind the wall, so if he fall backs and start to shoot me, I can like take casualties, so he cannot like kill a whole unit. So most of the unit was fighting him, but more importantly, I was tagging him and I was having more OC on the objective. So he couldn't like if he fall back with aberrations, they will not deal damage to the Lich Guards. And aberrations alone, especially if only like I don't know 4 of them fight Lich Guards, cannot kill them. If he fall backs with them, he can only have like 1 go with his demo charges, but that was the unit with -1 to hit. Demo charges on his acolytes. But first of all, he has only 2 units with demo charges, and second of all, because he didn't want to give his assassination to me, didn't have primuses attached to them. So they like their damage output is not enough to threaten Lich Guard if they don't have primus in the unit, especially against the stealth Lich Guard blob. So it basically meant that after I tagged the aberrations to the end of the game, he cannot focus enough damage on my Lich Guard to kill them on this like middle of the board. And yeah, in the end, I make some like cool plays with rapid ingressing the Doomsday, so I can. Actually, it was a bigger play because first I shot Doomsday to kill like 1 or 2 acolytes, so I can have space to rapid ingress later the Doomsday because I need to kill like 1 acolyte to have an angle, and I kill like 2 or 3. It doesn't matter. It was basically he screened out everything, but he make like a huge line of acolytes, and he either would need to kill his demo charges, or he would need to kill the guys that were blocking my rapid ingress. And I shoot Overwatch, kill like 2 guys, and he decided to open the. I don't think I'm not sure if he knew it, but he opened the rapid ingress for my second Doomsday. The second Doomsday dropped down within like 11 inches of 20 Neophyte squad. Still, my opponent was very smart. He didn't use the unit with character. He was like using the empty unit. So my rapid ingressing Doomsday just clear 20-man unit of Neophytes with reroll wounds and being stationary devastating wounds. Yeah. And like from that point, like I had a stalemate that I was winning in the middle because I was holding objective against his operations with one of the Lich Guard blobs. The second Lich Guard blob push his home objective because they Veil of Darkness turn 1. Then I think I use a free strat to advance and have assault weapons on the unit, and I roll like a 1 and free reroll because that stratagem gives you a free reroll if you have a leader in a unit to a 6. So I, even though I Veil of Darkness like a long way from his home objective, I managed to very quickly get a distance and get close to him. In some places, I get just the right amount of damage to kill more. So I got some better scores on the primary from that. He, as I said, denied me the assassination really well, so I get 0 from that. But in the end, the game ended in a 10-10, as like that's the estimation of this matchup. If my opponent try to flip it, it can go either way, like small win or small loss. If he plays safe, we're gonna end up around the draw. And because if I play assassination, if he has his characters in units and use them aggressively, he gonna get more points from primary, but he gonna give me his assassinate. If he play more defensively and don't give me his assassination points, he gonna lose some primary. So yeah, and it like work very, very well in that game. So it ended up in a 10-10. Also, my opponent was very difficult to play on, like not hard as a person. It was a very nice game. Actually, every single game I describe and every game I played was very nice opponents and very like nice sportsmanship. It was like I saw that he kind of knew what he was doing. He make all the right decision except that one moment when he charged with aberrations. I think like that was basically the only point when he makes some mistakes.
Yeah, but still, judging from what you're saying, the level of play has been high throughout all teams, and it wasn't like series of mistakes were being made. It was maybe one or two mistakes that just swung the game a couple of points in your favor,
Hmm.
or against you,
Or against me,
in
yeah.
the case of game one. Right, so that was the pot phase finished. You guys as a team have scored 3 wins with over 100 points. And then to begin the Swiss phase in game 4, you faced Sweden?
Yes, we
Sweden.
did. Yes, we did. And I get another joyous Eldari matchup, another bus to like
So,
chew on tires.
did you have the banana to games ratio figured out by that point?
Yes, so the right banana ratio is you take your first banana just during the deployment. So when your opponent is deploying his unit, you just look at him and eat the banana very calmly to, like assert dominance that you're gonna be a monkey and you're gonna roll like crazy. Then you, with one hand, you just casually deploy your stuff and still eat the banana. It's very
Mm-hmm.
like important, like I cannot stress it enough, that the banana needs to be color, like it cannot be green, because you cannot like undermine your opponent that you estimating a win into him. You cannot like show him a green banana that will mean you want to win this
Okay.
matchup. You cannot do it.
Mm-hmm.
You also cannot bring like a old banana with the little black spots, because it just don't taste that good. I don't like it. You need to bring like perfectly yellow banana to get the best scores, especially against GSC and Eldari. Yeah, and the ratio, you take the first banana during the deployment, then the second banana like during the turn 3 of your opponent, not your turn. And you eat the banana, look him in the eye, and roll saves with the other hand, right? It's very
Mm-hmm.
easy. And yeah, and there will be a shocker in the last game, because the bananas are not always unavailable, and there was a tragedy in the last game, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so this matchup was very different one than, like this list was very different one than most of the Eldar were bringing, because it
Mm-hmm.
didn't include Wraith Knight, which was actually kind of bad for me.
Mm-hmm.
and because my list was very well built to killing a Wraith Knight.
Yeah, you had
And
all the anti-tank to potentially take
yeah,
it down, and I guess without a Wraith Knight, that was a point of focus for those units. They were kind of a point sink.
yeah, like into my opponent in this particular matchup, they were still perfectly fine and they were having a decent enough targets.
Hmm.
But in this game, I had the board choice, and I took, like, it didn't matter. I took the one that have the little big ruins. I think that they could be. Just because I think other matchups wanted that table to be like taken from them. Uh, but in the end, I think I was first defender or maybe second defender. I usually would have a decent board choice at that point to fuck with Wraith Knight. But
Hmm.
my opponent didn't bring one, so we have a different game. What he had in his list, which is very important, are two Knight Spinners, which are very bad, almost as bad as three Knight Spinners into Necrons, because Night Spinners plus Incarn are hell of a drag. Like, they are actually such a good combination, and their ability to basically make my Lich Guard move 3 inches is awful for my game plan.
Hmm.
But in that particular game, like, my opponent had basically, he didn't have a Wraith Knight, he didn't have a Wraith Guard, he had a lot of vehicles, including Fireplace, Fire Prism, Warwalkers, some D cannons on platforms, a lot of like two Night Spinners, some Hornets, like a lot of spiders. Like, this list was basically MSU vehicle list in Eldar, basically. It was actually kind of good list. Uh, Obviously, in most matchup, not as good as a Wraith Knight, but at the same
Hmm.
time, I was prepared for Wraith Knight, and this list, having so many MSU was not this, and having like a very spread out anti tank, and at the same time having like war walkers that are really, 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 really good at being cost effective against my shooting, because they have -1 to wound and they have for a pinbone that he can use dice on, which is like annoying to deal with. Yeah, and in the end, I estimated it like a drawish matchup,
Hmm.
and yeah, and I went first, which was huge, and then because I have a very steady banana diet with the free reroll, well, I played tacticals, my opponent played tacticals, and I get like, I don't know, cleanse and homers or something.
Hmm.
So I basically, because I was going first, I was not slowed by Night Spinners. I use for 1 CP a stratagem of my Lichgar unit to get assault weapons and reroll advance. With the reroll, managed to get a 6 and get on the objective to the action. On the second unit of Lich Guard, I just roll a 6 from my hand using Overlord to do the same stratagem, get on the objective. So the one turn I could not have been slowed. I just rolled 2 6s on my advances, which help a lot.
Hmm.
Uh, Yeah, and I advance two Lich Guards blobs onto objectives. I position my stuff for the next turns to like push more. Then my opponent draws. It was this turn, I think. Yeah, it was this turn. My opponent draws like bringing down
Hmm.
and capture enemy outpost. And it might look really bad because had not even a single unit exposed that was a vehicle into my opponent, and
Hmm.
turn one taking your opponent's home objective is not that easy.
Hmm.
But He had an Incarn, and he had 2 Night Spinners and a Dream, and he tried to kill my Reanimator with 2 Night Spinners, which should not happen because I have 3 up save, 4 up feel no pain, 6 wounds. But my opponent managed to roll, I think, like a 5 shots, like 5 on d6 and then 6 on d6. So it get really tense and close for my Reanimator to die. But in the end, with the command reroll of a save and rolling like decent enough on my feel no pains, I managed to survive on 1 wound. So his Incarn couldn't teleport to my home objective. And during this, his whole army, basically, like the rest of his army, shot into my Lichguard brick with -1 to hit. Kill some Lichguards, but between me resurrecting models from the stratagem and resurrecting models from Resurrection Orb, my turn, I lost like 0 Lichguard because I reanimated 4d3 plus 1 wounds, and he like I maybe was missing 1 Lichguard. Like he didn't deal enough damage to like do anything bad to them, and because my Lichguards weren't slowed because he tried to go for a flip on my home objective with Incarn, I could push again. To be fair, I don't do wrong. I didn't like push it good enough. I could have like with the animations and stuff, I should have set up myself to push even harder into my opponent. And at the same time, I fail like a 6-inch charge with reroll with one of the Lichguard units that were a charge to his home objective at this point. So yeah, there was a little bit bad luck on my side. I think this turn I deployed most of my army and tried to go for his vehicles and stuff. But during deployment, I make a mistake that I didn't put at least one of my Doomsdays into reserves. And because I put my Arachnites into reserves, so if he shoots his Night Spinners, he will not have an easy teleportation target. But in hindsight, I should have just deployed them like near his deployment zone and said, okay, you can take those Arachnites and I will have a Doomsday, like a space for Doomsday in my reserves. And to just come in later and, deal more damage to his vehicles list. The turn I dropped down with my shooting, I killed one of my Night Spinners because he was exposing him a little bit to try and deal with Lichguards, like help to deal with Lichguards. I think it was mistake, but at the same time on the stable we played, he either would get a risk of me tagging the Night Spinner with Lichguard and try to kill it like next turns because I pushed so close to his home objective, or he would expose himself to a shooting angle with one of the Night Spinners because he had like a space for one Night Spinner to hide, but 2 was kinda too much to hide on this table, and the angles I could get with my reserves. So I think I kill his Night Spinner with all of my heavy destroyers. The rest of heavy destroyers, like a Hex Marks and the Arachnites shooting their Meltas, and like basically everything else, couldn't kill Fire Prism on the objective, which was annoying to me a little bit. But that stuff happens. And overall, the game ended up in the stage that my opponent very quickly started to clear my chaff units and literally kill all of my chaff units. but at the same time, my tool rich guard blobs were keep scoring the points from him and taking the points from him. But as this mission was how it's called, this mission was born like destroying objectives, and if you destroy all of the objectives like outside of your home objective, like skipping your home objective, which I think my opponent did, or he skipped like one objective, but he get like 20 points primary from destroying the objective because he cleared my
Mm-hmm.
chaff and turn 4 and turn 5, turn 3 and turn 4 start to burn stuff on the table, so he get like a lot of points from it. Yeah, I think he'll burn like 3 objectives. I don't remember perfectly, but basically it was a little bit more points to till the end of the game, and he managed to do it. And yeah, my Lich Guard unit burned his home objective too, but that was the only objective I like destroyed. So yeah, the between the cards and the primary that he scored on the end of the game, it ended up with like 12 points win to my opponent,
Mm-hmm.
which to be fair, I kinda could have get worse score, maybe, but not by a much, like maybe 13 points for him if he get first turn and stole my Lich Guards.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because I will still have my Veil of Darkness to get on one of the objectives, and the second objective was so close to me that like turn 2 I would get on it with my Technomancer from the Lich Guard unit anyway. So it was something, but it wasn't a huge deal because we were playing quarters, right? So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
yeah,
I
and
thought.
yeah.
Sorry, I thought you would have had gotten even more, considering the fact you rolled like monkey on that reanimator turn one and denied a lot of potential points.
Yeah. Like, but my opponent also rolled like a monkey. Like, statistically, I think two night spinner should not kill our
Mm-hmm.
animator, and he get really close to doing it because he rolled a lot of shots. But you know,
Yep,
he go for
that's
a
what it
flip.
is.
He didn't manage. Yeah,
So then we had round five, right? That was into USA, and you got paired into the only Grey Knight list on the tournament.
there were two grenade lists. I don't know who
No,
bring
the
this.
only.
The only? You sure? I
Uh,
think there was like one of
yeah.
the lower teams got grenade list
Oh
too.
no, now you're making me check. Why do you do
No,
this
it's
to
okay.
me?
Don't need to bother. Like the only list that we played. So yeah, I played, right, and I'm talking about my game. So it's the
Yep.
only list of Grey Knights I faced. If there was a second Grey Knight list, we can like you can talk about it in different podcasts. I will now describe my game against lovely fella Jack. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna butcher his name. Harmster,
Harpster.
Harpster, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very nice game. As I mentioned before in the part one, I didn't play a single game against this list, and this list was kinda similar in idea to Liam's Necrons. That is a very unique list that you need to have decent enough tools to deal with, and at the same time knows how to play the game to actually deal with it. Because if you make some mistakes, you're gonna get punished really hard for it. Uh, so this list is very good into denying your opponent points, especially if he picks tacticals, because if you try to overwhelming force or no prisoners or breaking down or assassination, it will just not give you points. He can decide, usually, not every time, but usually he can decide just not to expose his unit or to just move back or go back to deep strike if you try to deal damage to him, really. And the estimation in this matchup was like also drawish, with the little remark that maybe it's a better matchup for me, but I was not I didn't play a test game into it. I only saw like one or two turns of this list playing, and not Jack playing it, but Myson and Myson playing it against Duda. So I
Mm-hmm.
only have like a vague idea how it works. Then I have Kruker, like one of our coaches, explain how that list works, and he done it very very well. He go around Jack and look at his games during the previous rounds and just look how this list perform and what he does on the table, and he got me like a quick rundown what can happen,
Mm-hmm.
like what place this list has. And based on that, I played like a very defensive plan that I knew if I try to overextend and like play wide, there is a chance he can pick his fights and like collapse one of my flanks. And uh, going into to the WTC US team, the national team of US, we were having some problems in pairings when I think they won the pairings.
Mm-hmm.
And still, despite that, I was asked to maybe try to push a little for the points, but it was not like me. I was not like, no one told me to go like deep in, try to flip it, go like all in. It was just try to get like play a little bit more aggressive, try to make points.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like first 2 or 3 turns, I get really bad secondaries cards, and I get like 5 points from them. Like my
Okay.
first 3 turns, 2 or 3, I'm not sure. I got like 5 points for my secondaries, and it was very rough because my opponent was getting pretty good secondaries and just scoring them outright.
Mm-hmm.
So the first turns were looking really bad, but during one of his turns, like turn 2 or maybe turn 3, I think turn 2, he tried to make a 6-inch charge into my Lichguard unit, and he failed it with a reroll, and that was like quite a lot of points, like 1 or maybe 2 big points.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I made a mistake positioning there, that could be fixed with deal like killing good units in the right order, like good models in the right model from the unit to break coherency. So I would take the models that are in combat out of combat and then could shoot at him. But at this point, as I described before, I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
knew like the out of the game, like what I need to do to win it. So I didn't done it, and like he was basically safe when he was attempting this longer charge, because I couldn't shoot at him in the position he was, because I think he was charging from behind of the wall during that.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like this. I don't know if he make maybe lone up them or something. I couldn't shoot at them from what I remember, or if I could shoot like with one unit. I basically didn't deal enough damage to them to it to matter really. And next turn he charged me on the objective, take the primary from me, score some more secondaries, and we start fighting in like a grueling melee combat. Uh, but I was like thinking, okay, if I fall back with Lich Guards after the round of combat, I could shoot at him, or he need to go back to reserves, so he will not have his objective back. but
Mhm.
him doing so, he rapid ingressed back on the table, and I think he done it again. He go for a try to take objective from me again, but when he make his charge during his turn, I make a counter charge with my heavy destroyers that I knew would probably die into his grenades, but doing
Mhm.
so didn't allow him to pile in into my objective, so he couldn't take it again. So there was
Mhm.
like a nice play from me, like sacrificing a unit with Horror Intervention to block him from getting on the objective.
Mhm.
And later on, it was like I scored some points with some movement shenanigans. He tried to kill my Doomsday with like half of squad of Grey Knights. Didn't manage to kill it, and basically this game ended pretty quick because like his first turns were doing nothing, my first turns were doing nothing really, and then like the few things happened and the game ended.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I score really bad secondaries at the start of the game. He scored really bad secondaries at the end of the game, and in the end, the score end up 11 points for my opponent and 9 points for me. As I
Mhm.
said, if I knew exactly how the list works and like how I should play it, I think I could have pushed for higher score simply because I could have sacrificed one unit of Lich Guard to like force him to get into my shooting or to just kill like uh, some of the models in my unit with coherency
Mhm.
and just shoot him anyway. So I don't need to move Lich Guard at all, and I can just shoot my Doomsdays and my Heavy Destroyers into him, despite him, trying to like get the usual trick of this
Mhm.
list he
Mhm.
played that he charged something, you don't want to fall back. If you stay in combat, you cannot shoot him. If you fall back, he gonna run away, right? So there's
Yep.
like a way you can go around it, but you need to know how to do it before the game and like plan your uh, the way you set up the unit and position the unit before. And I like realize this can happen. I can do it like too late, like turn two
Mhm.
after I like set up my unit in the right place. I like realized, okay, after he charged, I was okay. If I deployed differently, it would be fine. But if I deployed because I deployed the way I did, I couldn't like take the casualties in the right way to break my coherency and not could get like some shots into him and then start collapsing his game because basically this list is 3 units of Grey Knights, like big blobs of Grey Knights in Terminator
Mhm.
armors, and then like one Calidus and one Chaff unit. So if he loses like 1 or 1.5 unit, he is basically not a threat anymore. Also, I think at one point I exploited his unit count a little bit by rapid ingressing like a 2-man unit of heavy destroyers with little shots that deal almost no damage, and they were rapid ingress in such a place that they will not shoot anyone and anything, but it forces my opponent it forced my opponent to stay with one unit of Grey Knights Terminator, so like a 10-man brick with a character on
Mhm.
his objective, because otherwise I would take it purely because I have more OC from a Calidus. So he needed to like hold one of his grenade units just because the Calidus would not hold the objective. So he needed to sacrifice like a lot of points just to stop my 90 points from taking objectives from him. So I think
Mhm.
it was a nice play from me. Yeah, and
Uh,
that's
would you
it.
have would you have estimated this matchup differently now, having played it?
Uh it's kind of mission dependent, but I feel with my list and knowing how to deal with it, I would
Mhm.
estimate it this matchup as a small win to me.
Okay.
Because if you play it right and you kind of force your opponent to start fighting you, it can't go actually quite bad for the Grey Knights. Obviously, there at some point usually will be some 9-inch charge involved both
Mhm.
ways, so it can swing one or the other way. But
Mhm.
like get looking at it again and knowing the limitations of the list, so basically how many CP he has, and that one of his best tricks, so repositioning when you shoot him is only once per game, is like there is a play against this list if you do it right, I think, like straight up.
Mhm.
It is also depends on the mission, because if the mission requires you to go really wide, this list can pick his fights and like fight one uh, section of the board at a time and just reposition to another. But it's still not that easy, especially considering uh, what's the damage output of the Grey Knights and what's the CP drain they need to use to actually do stuff.
Mhm. Understood. Right. On to game 6.
I played
You.
Orcs against Spain.
Mhm.
I played with a very lovely fella, which with nickname I remember. It's Wah Dog. But it's too late for me to shout his name the proper way I should.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there are people sleeping around. It's like two, like it's middle of fucking night at this point.
Yep.
Yeah. So the game was basically, I think my opponent have a small win estimation, or like yeah, I think he had like a small win estimation. I have it as a small win, maybe a draw after the first game I played against Orcs, but
Mhm.
he didn't really like consider table choice, and I had a table choice, and I really saw my opponent losing his happy attitude. Maybe no, like it was a very fun game and we both have a laugh during it, but during his deployment I saw some concern on his face when he saw that he cannot really hide his list in the right places. Like he needed to push back his models basically to his deployment edge, like his not deployment edge, his table edge, to hide them from my shooting. And there was like not good place for him to push out. Uh, so this game, I think I could have pushed way harder than I did, because I had a first turn, which means that he need to declare Wa in advance, and he basically uses like one turn of Wa, like
Mhm.
half a battle round turn of Wa, not 2 turns. So there was some like a play for me to try to push the score, but during like turn 2 or 3, my coaches again told me that it's fine, I don't need to push for scores. I was estimating it like a 11, maybe 12 points win. But then the secondaries happen, and like I think if there is a one lesson from WTC I should consider is playing fixed secondaries more often,
Mhm.
because in the end, like tacticals can bite you in the ass really badly, and it did bite me in the ass on multiple occasions. Like as I am good at rolling stuff, if I eat bananas, I think bananas
Mhm.
have no power over the cards.
Cards.
Yeah, and it's very rough for
Unlucky.
me. Yeah, it's very unlucky for me, and it's very rough for me that it doesn't work on cards. So, like, we're playing it. Like the guy was really nice. We have a very fun game when we laugh about a lot of funny stuff happening. it basically boils down to me playing quite safe for 2 turns, because this list he played actually have a really decent chance of um, killing my Lich Guards and me not getting like a chance to push back at him.
Mm-hmm.
But I played a little bit better than I did the first game, and the mission allowed me to play it more safely too. And basically, knowing that I don't need to push for a high score, I play quite passive game when I like force him to give some units into me. Otherwise, I'm gonna score like crazy. But so I slowly like pick up some of his units. There was one point when I make a mistake and allow him to rapid ingress on one of the objectives and take it,
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact I could have like deep strike on it before and block this opportunity from him. But I was really worried he gonna roll like a 6 on advance, because it was his Wa turn, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like I used death marks not to take the objective and block his rapid ingress, so he don't score primary, but I use it to screen out his advances and charges, so he cannot like push deep into me if he roll like a 5 or a 6 for a charge. Yeah, basically in this game, like I think I lost maybe I lost Arachnites,
Mm-hmm.
and I lost like I think that's it. Oh yeah, I lost death marks and I lost 3 main units of heavy destroyers, and that's all the losses I actually lost that game. I almost didn't lost anything, and I almost tabled my opponent. Not tabled, but like he had 2 tracks, like a 1 unit of boys, like 1 Squeak Hog, like not unit, 1 Squeak Hog,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe 1 character on like 2 wounds. At the end of the game, I have almost all my army, which mean if I make some risks and like try to push the score, especially that I knew when his Wa turn is gonna be, I could have pushed the score harder. As I said, the cards in the end go really not my way, and my
Mm-hmm.
opponent gets, despite he was like almost not on the table, he get really good cards. So he score a little bit more, and like during the estimations when I was giving to my coaches, I was saying like it's gonna be small win, like 11, maybe 12, but my opponent said no, it's gonna be more. But in the end, like because of the cards, it ended up lead like a 9 points for me, or 10-10. I don't remember really well, but it was like close to a draw basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like again, I think the story of this WTC is I didn't need to play very stress full games that I need to push for points. I just basically need to play some orcs games, some Grey Knights that I'm not really familiar with, and then a lot of hard matchups, but I have the comfort of not needing to push for scores. So it was
Mm-hmm.
actually quite chill out for me on this WTC.
Out of curiosity, did you lose a Lich Guard blob in any of the games?
Uh, I lost the Lichguard blob against the Whales Eldar, but mainly because
Oh.
he rolled like 25 mortal wounds and then
Mm-hmm.
15 more
Mm-hmm.
in Overwatch. So yeah.
Right. Right. Okay.
But
And
yeah, basically.
so that leaves us with the final game against England. What did you get paired into? What
Obviously
did you?
GSC.
What was the estimation, and how did the game go?
Yeah, the list was almost the same as the previous GSC I faced, and it was the
Mm-hmm.
same. It's gonna be around the draw. GSC has a slight advantage. Then And then if he try to push the score, he's gonna get smashed if he don't make the stat check. If he make the stat check, it's gonna be a bigger loss for me, but still not a huge loss. So the game basically went as the previous game against GSC, but there was one difference there, that this time my opponent gave me all of his characters, and he denied me primary a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, but doing so I get a lot of assassination points. So the game basically end up in the similar stage that the first GST game end up. Uh, the idea was I was like slowly pushing the Lich Guards, doing homers, trying to get some assassination points. My opponent also misplayed a little bit the aberrations, because
Mm-hmm.
I figure out turn one, if I advance my Lich Guards on one of the objectives, I need like a 4-inch advance with reroll because of the stratagem. I mean, free stratagem. I could have reroll for that actually, because I was not doing any actions on the objective. I could get like one guy on the objective, one Lich Guard on the objective. Then I had like 3 more guys making a line towards the ruin, and I had the rest of the Lich Guard behind the ruin.
Mm-hmm.
And because if he charges me, and I do it in such a way that if even if he rolls a 12 inch charge, he wouldn't be able to get in like contact in the uh, engagement range with more than the 4 guys in front. So no matter what, if he charge me, he gonna free up my Lich Guard unit anyway. If he shoots me, I gonna get off the objective and he will have a longer charge. He can fail. So I basically presented him a choice. He can try to charge the Lich Guards, get really close to my shooting, because behind this Lich Guards unit, I had 6 heavy destroyers and I had a Doomsday waiting in reserves. Also, the second Doomsday, if he don't use the lone operative strat, was waiting for him on an angle if he tried to charge the Lich Guard. So basically, he could either stay behind the ruin and don't try to take the primary from me, because it was turn 1, so he couldn't uh, deep strike his staff on this objective yet. Or
Mm-hmm.
he tried to take the objective, or he charged the Lich Guard, get really close to me, and get easily killed by my shooting, all of my shooting basically. He decided to take the objective with the OC he had, and it meant that I couldn't shoot all of my destroyers into him, only one unit that have advance and shoot, and then like one guy from the other unit. But I also deep strike now strategic reserve a Doomsday there. So in the end, it end up like I kill like a half of a unit of the aberrations, and then my Lich Guard charge his aberrations, and I ask the judge when I roll the charge, because I rolled the perfect number for me to get enough guys into fight, and at the same time enough of them didn't need to get into fight, that I could make a huge swing with the rest of the unit, because I had like a huge string of Lich Guards, because only some of
Mm-hmm.
them were on the objective. I have like a huge string of Lich Guards, and if the end of the like a huge line of Lich Guards got his charge, pile-in, and consolidation, I could have take the like tag one of his units in the middle, which was actually very important, because that was his rapid ingress unit with bombs that could have like shot my other Lich Guard unit, or try to take my own objective from me with a charge. So I make like a huge movement with that Lich Guard unit. At the same time, I didn't need to like try to do other stuff on the table to block him taking the objective from me. So it was quite nice that it like work out this way. And I like called the judge to make sure my measurements are fine when I'm doing the whole tagging stuff. Like first I explain what I'm going to do and then like do it like step by step with the judge. So it's legit and it's all the way. Both sides know I didn't make like any misplace on the rules side. And
Yep.
you like the game basically played out. I forced a lot of loan up on his units, so he doesn't have a lot of CP to boost his damage output. I played a Lich Guard unit and a Hex Mark on the middle of the board and score a lot of the deploy teleport homers. Turn 3, I had like a situation when I kill a lot of his stuff because he committed to take objectives from me. Also lost characters doing so, so give me a lot of assassination. And I had like a chance if I Veil of Darkness and push my second Lich Guard into his army, I could have like not maybe table him, but at least push him completely off the table to like corners and stuff, so he cannot really score well. But that would need me to roll a 9-inch charge, and if I didn't roll a 9-inch charge and then he roll a 9-inch charge to one of my objectives, the score could have flipped heavily in his favor, like heavily. Like maybe in the end the game ended 9 points for me, 11 for my opponent. If I try to gamble this and fail and then he do the same, so the 9 charge and makes it, it would be like 7 points. But at this point, like we knew we don't need any more points, we just want stable points and no flips. So I think from turn 3 I didn't move almost any units. I just like stand on the objective with the perfect setup of my Lich Guard, like on the one hand threatening him, on the second hand being deployed in such a way that he cannot never like focus damage into me. And overall, I want to talk about why Necrons can and Lich Guards in general can play it into GSC. Overall, the idea of how, because if the GSC focuses damage into the Lich Guard blob, it's gonna die. But you can avoid him like focusing his damage into you by deploying your characters in that position. They cannot be charged, they cannot be shot because you screen out with the rest of the unit or other units, so they are always in a safe spot. Then you make like lines of Lich Guard in the directions that are dangerous to you. So if you're screened out by border edge or some other units are screening the Lich Guard from one side, you don't do it this way, this sides, but you make like small spikes towards the directions that are dangerous, and those spikes can go in the open too. It's fine. It's very good if one of those like little spikes go on the objective and so on. And if so he have like 3 main units that can deal damage to you: neophytes, acolytes, or aberrations. You deal with aberrations that if he shoots anything and you take like 1 or 2 casualties, so basically that many casualties that you're gonna reanimate with your stratagem anyway in his shooting, he will have no charge or very very long charge into you. You usually want to make it like unchargeable if he does it. Then if he try to start with bombs, it's fine. He gonna throw the bombs, deal some damage. you're gonna kill the spikes in such a way that he will not have charge range with aberrations, or will not throw more bombs into the same unit, or at least you're gonna like minimize the neophytes damage. But because basically two units that deal the most damage to Lich Guards are aberrations with Biophagus and Acolytes, and the neophytes kinda deal some damage, but it's not like terrible. Into like it's manageable for Lich Guards to take some damage from the Acolytes. So when he starts dealing damage, you will not allow him to throw the second unit of bombs. And if he starts with neophytes, you will just take the models so he don't throw the bombs, don't charge the aberrations. If he don't shoot you at all and charge the aberrations statistically don't, even with the Biophacus, don't kill whole unit of Lich Guards, so you're still fine. And because you have those spikes, probably you will free up the Lich Guard unit to do whatever, and you will shoot the aberrations with the rest of your shooting. So it's very important how you position your Lich Guards into this matchup. And basically, like the only way around it, if you deploy your stuff correctly and the table permits it, and most tables do, like maybe you cannot push very aggressively in the couple of first turns, but later on it's fine. If you deploy in this fashion, he never can like easily kill your unit, and the only way you can lose your unit is either if he has his acolytes with Primus roaring really well and you rolling really bad, and he clears the Lich Guard unit. Theoretically, aberrations could kill the Lich Guard unit, but like statistically it doesn't make sense. Like it's basically he has like 30 attacks that he should hit like 20, maybe 25, because exploding sixes off if he like do it with the deep strike or something. And then he wounds on twos, so he lost like one or two, maybe three of his attacks, and then the invon cuts in half, and then
Yep.
like one or two you feel no pains and you're fine. Yeah, so basically there's not a way to focus enough damage if you do it properly with Lich Guard to make the GSC have an easy go at them. And in this game I played this way. In the end, me staying from turn 3 on the like stable board, like I didn't like do anything fancy from this turn 3 onwards, and we just counted the scores basically. He tried to do some stuff, but it didn't like manage to get long enough charge and so on. So it was basically the game.
Well, I must say I am very much impressed by the insights and how detailed the analysis actually is. So thank you for that. And one last question that we have is, what about singles events? What to take? Would your list perform well on a singles event, or would Liam Hackett's list be better, or maybe something completely different that you would advise people like Dick, one of our patrons, who's going to the OGT and is looking for inspiration?
So as you said, Liam's list would work wonders if your opponent is not prepared and don't have correct tools to play against it. It can also get really bad if the terrain don't allow you to hide your support units. So I'm not sure what terrain will be on this event, but if you cannot hide the Reanimator, Command Barge, and the Ghost Arc from like a Wraith Knight, it's gonna be rough to play it. But overall, if not every, because it's like a, as I said, trick list. If none of your opponents will have like really good tools against it, and there are very niche tools against it, basically you are scared of uh Tau. No one's gonna
Uh-huh.
probably play it. You are scared of aggressors with the Lesius combo we have in our Team Poland, which
Mm-hmm.
might see some play because people really like the idea of Land Raider Redeemer, and overall the aggressors I think seem pretty nice for a lot of people from what I saw. Then you are kinda scared of some of the Custodes lists if they know exactly what to do. So it's still like maybe ish Custodes can be a problem. And then you have like a mm, kind of stat check on acolytes in the how they're called, GSC, but the
Mm-hmm.
GSC list need to be built like Myson had in our team, so no aberrations, because aberrations are really bad in this matchup, and you want as many acolytes as you can. And you attach primuses to the acolytes so they have more damage and they have actually a chance to delete warrior brick, especially if it's the one without Inven.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then there is like a off chance that Eldar gonna win against it purely because they have maybe two Wraith Knights and can like roll pretty well on them and just get this. Like I think it's roughly around 28 mortals to one shot the whole unit of warriors when they are set up with crypto trolls and so on. Like
Mm-hmm.
excluding characters, obviously, like you can roll a little bit high on feel no pains, but if you get 28 mortals, it's like close to it. And I think the math says there is like, because the Raid Knight gets so many attacks and you turn one of the attacks to a 6 and you have one reroll that you fish for a 6, there is like 25% chance you're gonna one shot the weaker unit, because also rest of the shots hurt the warriors badly, so the ones that are not mortals are also counting. So there is like, if you use all of the rerolls or the miracle dice, there's like 25% that Wraith Knight is gonna nuke one of those units, and then the game start to become really bad because two Wraith Knights is 20 OC, and there is little space on the marker when you put two Wraith Knight on it. So this list is, as I said, like if someone knows how to play against it and have decent enough tools or really good tools, you're gonna do really poor with it. If But most people will not have tools or will not know how to play against it, so then it's really really good. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that you can take, I would say, either like I would start with three Doomsdays, three Hex Marks, and at least one big unit of three heavy destroyers with big anti-tank weapons. And then I think you can try to make an argument for either two Lichguard blobs or Lichguard blob and a Cetan. And it depends what matchup you want to have better, because two Lichguard blobs would be better into GSC, and the Cetan would be better. The Cetan would be better into Custodes. So depending what do you want to have the better matchup against, you can build a list around, as I said, like three Doomsdays. Obviously, with you need a Sovereign Coronal on one of the hex marks. You get three hex marks, three heavy destroyers, because like three heavy destroyers with the big guns and three Doomsdays is a sweet spot, especially if you deploy them right, like outside of normal move plus Wraith Knight range, because actually Wraith Knight have 46-inch threat range if he don't Phantasm, and if he have Phantasm forwards on an open table, he's gonna get shot to pieces, and the threat ranges of Doomsdays are like, if they are stationary, 72-inch ranges. If they move, it is even more, but 72 is whole table, so it's enough. And the heavy destroyers got 48, but you can actually hide them behind the walls and get out to shoot at your Great Knight and still have a Sovereign Corona near to hit on twos. Yeah, and I think that list would do quite well against Eldar, especially if you have the Transcendent. It's basically, I would say, like 3 Doomsdays, 3 heavy destroyers in one unit. It's important because if you have solo heavy destroyers, it's a target for Night Spinners to kill and then teleport the Incarn. You don't want to any unit on the table that can be sniped by Night Spinners. If you play Eldar, like if you have some chaff, you put them in reserves basically. And I think this is like, depending if you want to have a better matchup into GSC or the Custodes, you play the second Lichguard blob into GSC or the Transcendent Satan into Custodes. And I think this list could have, if you play it right and you position it right, have a chance of getting really good scores. Because I don't think like you either have a small weakness against Castos or small weakness against GSC, but it doesn't say you necessarily automatically win, lose those matchups. It's just, it's difficult to play them. They are like having, if you roll badly or you make some mistakes or your opponent plays it perfectly, they have like an advantage, but you are still in the game to win it. So I would say like 3 Doomsdays and then 2 units of something, and you have like a very balanced list that can play almost everything. Even if you play against something like 2 Wraith Knights, it basically if you go first, they are fucked. If they go first and you deployed outside of 46
46,
inches,
you said, yeah.
46 inches from one of them, there is still a good chance that Doomsday will just tank the Wraith Knight, because he basically, like, 14 wounds with 4 up in 1 can tank a Wraith Knight, because he need like 2 times 6 to do enough mortal wounds to even like try to kill you. Otherwise you can bounce off your 4 up in 1, and he don't have that many shots, so it's not guaranteed he get like enough damage into you. So yeah, and even if he does and the Incarn teleports, there is still chance you can like pull it off. It's still like playable, maybe, depending on the rolls, how well 2 Doomsdays and 3 Heavy Destroyers gonna shoot him. You can also, depending on points, try to make this matchup better by bringing more Heavy Destroyers, or if it's also very nice thing to have in the like singles meta, to have a Tomb Sentinel to completely fuck the Thousand Suns, which I think after the WTC and how well Vic perform and some other Thousand Suns players kinda will get popular. So there are ways to build a list. I think like both archetypes, the heavy frontline list of Hackett will be perfectly fine, but have some weak points. But the weak points are not like necessary specific matchups. Some are, but like the matchups that counter this list are not obvious and not like very popular. But there is more of a problem of if your opponent knows how the list works or not. And the list I was describing like just a moment before, is more of a, will you play will you play the list right yourself, or you have some points where it's like a dice. Uh, the dice will decide if you get a little bit more lucky, you go first, or you roll high on your doomsdays, or you low on your doomsdays. But it can't be said to an extent with the Hackett list too, because if someone rolls really good against with the Wraith Knight into Warriors, or with, I don't know, like even a Doomsday, like the 3 Doomsday list into Hackett's list, uh, if the Doomsday stays stationary, one of them gonna reroll the hit roll. You have Sovereign Corona, so you still hit on 2s. Like 3 activations of Doomsdays, and then threatening the same unit with Lich Guard can force them to like get off the objective. So like there are arguments to go both ways. Hard to me to pick one. I think they both have their strengths. One of them is more of a trick. Second one is more of a, will you position your stuff well enough? Yeah, basically. Like also the Hackett list also needs a lot of skill to play. It's just that it also needs your opponent maybe to don't know exactly what to do against it. And my list is more like straightforward, but gives you more like niche plays, maybe not plays, like it's it's in some places harder to play, but have like smaller amount of weak spots, and these weak spots are quite obvious, and the weak spots of Hackett list are not obvious, and they are very big ones, but they are as they are not obvious, not everyone will know it or don't have exact tools to deal with it. Like either you have small holes in your game plan or list that are known, or you have big holes that are hard to figure out and maybe less common. Like there's less answers there in the meta.
Hmm. So a lot of it comes down to how the meta will shape up after the potential data slate that's supposed to be in time before LGT cutoff. So we'll
Wow.
see, but
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot of room for the Necrons to show their strengths, and a lot of different builds you can actually try and make them work.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gyto, thank you very much for an extensive deep dive into the faction. It was a pleasure to listen to, and I'm sure you could ramble on for a lot more time, but it's the actual middle of the night, and I feel that my brain cells are escaping my head. So I guess we can wrap up now.
Yeah.
So
I
you
can
go on.
ramble about Necrons a lot, and I can go for like couple hours still, and but my voice down to like my throat start to hurt, and I think it's the time to go to bed because tomorrow is still a day, like a working day
Yes,
before the
it
weekend.
is.
So like there's one more day to go through, and I gonna be sleepy tomorrow. I mean today
Yeah,
actually.
me too. Me too. So let's use your sore throat as an opportunity to end this. Thanks to our patrons because we're doing this for you and we're doing this thanks to you. So we hope you continue to support us and that we will be delivering the content that you want to listen to you on a regular basis. Thank you for today and good night.
Good night, everyone.